Welcome back. We're in the Genesis chapter 3, and it's our second part of the series on the fall. So, do we need a recap of what we did yesterday?
Yes, why don't you do that, Cole?
Okay. So, this quick story with Adam and Eve, the temptation. They had a choice whether to trust God's ways or their own ways. The temptation came when they started to doubt, because of what the serpent said. They started to doubt the goodness of God and the fact that God wanted the best for them, and the doubts came. Maybe God was trying to stop them from fulfilling all that they could be, and so they chose to go their own way. And we talked about the consequences of that, the sin that then brought shame and guilt and fear, and ended up with people again covering and hiding and stopping themselves from really being open with each other and with God. So lots of destructive stuff coming out of that. The story goes on then to God finding Adam and Eve, and there are these judgments that God makes to firstly to Eve, then to Adam, and to the serpent. So we're just going to look at those quite briefly in the story. Okay, but the subject of judgment is another thing that goes right the way through the Bible. God's judgment. Sometimes we get the wrong idea of it, like God's coming to punish everyone that's gone against him, and he wants to make their lives misery and stuff like that. Actually, the theme of judgment is about God, the righteous judge, acting to make things right again. That's the whole point of judgment. It's to bring the right things, the good things, where there was destructive behaviour. He's coming to stop that and to bring the right kind of behaviour. He's coming to heal the world through his judgments.
Not just judgment for judgment's sake.
No. So judgment, there is an interesting thing about judgment which we'll just talk about. Let's just clarify what those judgments were. So to the woman, verse 16, he says two things, judgments. Have you got that there?
Mm-hmm.
What are they?
Pain in childbirth.
Yeah. And
your desire will be for your husband, and he'll rule over you.
So remember Eve's part that she'd been given to play in the purposes of God. We talked about this forming and filling, and Eve's part was the filling, the childbirth and the nurturing, and the building of family. And it seems like that's an area that God says, okay, this is going to be a pain for you, pain in labour and pain in your relationship with your husband. So, these are difficult things. For Adam, verse 17, what's he say there?
Because you listened to your wife, you must not eat. Because you listened to your wife, cursed is the ground because of you, and you'll have to toil.
So, pain in labour again.
Yeah.
Different type of labour, but labour in the ground.
There's going to be thorns and thistles, and you're going to sweat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's his part of the call of God. So he was asked to do the forming, and again, there's trouble and difficulty in that area. It's not going to be easy like in the garden where everything just grew nicely. There's no weeds or thorns or thistles. The fruit just grows by itself. Now it's going to take work, hard work, and it's going to be difficult. So,
can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
for the woman, he said, your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you.
Yeah.
So before the curse, he wouldn't have ruled over her? That's not what I was taught. Do you want to explain what that means?
Yeah, I think it's a starts to become a dysfunctional relationship. So
Okay.
the desire that she has for her husband is more of a kind of desire for control.
Yeah, that's what I was taught.
And the rule that he has over her becomes kind of a dominating rule.
Yeah.
So it's...
Because you read it and think that's not that awful.
No. Well, it's pretty bad though when it comes to relationships, for man to dominate woman and to control her and her to try and control him. You know, there's lots of difficulties in that, which has come as a result of the fall. But I just wanted to touch on this thing of God's redemption. There is a redemption that comes even in judgment. So I'm just thinking of Adam having to work hard on the ground. That the trees don't just grow by themselves. They don't produce fruit so easily. That it's now hard work, and he's got to labour at it. Where's the redemption in that? Any idea? I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Okay.
When we lived in Bloemfontein, it was the first time we'd really lived in a sort of an area that there was where there were lots of farmers. We'd not really met lots of farmers before, and it struck me then that people that are connected to the ground like that are farming, they recognised their need to trust in God in a way that we never have done. You know, we are the kind that just go to the supermarket and we think, of course, there's going to be food in the supermarket. We never have to pray, God, give us the rain. God, send the sun. May the harvest be good this year. It's like they'd learned a dependence on God and to trust in God in a way that we never had. And it made me realise that although this seemed like a terrible curse for the ground, and that he had to work hard and it wasn't just all easy, actually it meant that he would have to put his trust back on God in a way that he wouldn't have done otherwise. So even though it seems like a terrible judgment, actually there's a redemption in it.
Is that the same for all the judgments?
Well, a lot of the judgments.
So for the woman...
So yeah, for the
you have
woman...
to say, God help me, because otherwise I'm going to kill this man. You have to rely on God for grace.
Yeah.
That's why I love it in our wedding vows. We make those vows by the grace of God. Is that what you mean in a nutshell?
I do. I mean, you think about a woman going into labour. There is a vulnerability about a woman in labour that, you know, we're all going, please help us. the woman, the man, everyone. We recognise our vulnerability in that. We recognise we haven't got all that it takes here. We need help, and we're dependent on others. We're not an island sorted out. Everything's fine. Yeah, we're just going to go away and have babies. And, you know, there is a vulnerability to say, you know, we need people. We need God. All these judgments, I think they do bring us back to a sense of, but without God, we're in trouble. You know.
Okay, it's interesting.
So judgment is often with a sense of, but it has a redemptive side to it, and that's what, you know, I think God does. That even in His judgments, there's mercy and there's grace.
Yeah, mercy triumphs over judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the majority of God's judgments are to bring repentance, are to draw people back, to bring people back from their destructive behaviour, to bring them back into line with what He wants. So now there are exceptions to that. There are times when God says, there's no redemption here. It's finished. So the example would be with the serpent. There's no redemption for the serpent. He's told he's going to crawl on his belly. It's a place of humiliation, the crawling in the dust. And says that there'll be enmity between the snake and the woman, and he will crush the head of the serpent, and he will strike his heel. Talking ultimately about the defeat of Satan at the cross.
Yeah.
Which we can come on to at another time. But there are times when God says enough. That you've had your chances, you've had enough, and now I withdraw my hand. That's quite a scary prospect. And he does do that at times. But that's not the case in the majority of times, I think, when you look at the judgments of God. Okay, so it's a theme that goes through. And then finally, there's exile. Another big theme.
Banished from the garden.
Yeah, banished from the garden, banished from the presence. It's like mankind always lives with this sense of there must be something better. There is a fulfilment that we still haven't found yet, that we know is there. There's almost like we've inherited this memory of Eden, even though we've never been there.
We're not home yet.
And we haven't found it, what we were meant for fully. We see it in glimpses, we have little tastes here and there, but we haven't actually found all that we should be and could be. And that's because we haven't found that perfect relationship with God yet. We're always outside. And this theme of exile will carry on, keep coming, and we'll see it as people come and go out of God's presence, out of the purposes of God, and how he is looking to draw people back to himself. Okay, so that's Adam and Eve. Gone through that very quickly. There's lots in that. And even more quickly I want to touch on Cain and Abel. So that's chapter 4. So this is the story that comes straight after the exile, as Adam and Eve come out of Eden, and it turns to their children. Why I just wanted to look at this in a bit more detail is because it's got so many similar parts to this story. If you compare them with the previous story we've just read of the fall with Adam and Eve, there's a sense in which this thing gets repeated through the generations.
Yeah.
So let's have a quick look at it. We find that Cain and Abel are working. Abel is working with the flocks. He's a shepherd. Cain is working on the soil. He's a farmer. They bring their offerings. God accepts Abel's offering of the flocks. He rejects Cain's offering. We don't know why. All we know is that he says, he didn't look with pleasure on it. And Cain was really annoyed. He was angry. He went away very, his face was downcast, and he was very angry. And the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it." So there's this sense in which there's this choice again, as Cain gets his offering rejected, and he's very angry. And he has this choice to make. Does he pursue the way that he wants to go? Does he pursue the way God wants him to go? And he knows it. God says to him, you know the right way. And if you do it, then you'll be okay, you'll be accepted. But he says sin is crouching at your door. It's like a beast, like an animal, isn't it? Crouching at the door, waiting to devour you, waiting to grab you, waiting to take you. And, just like the serpent in the previous story, now we've got a beast that's waiting to come and grab Cain and take him the wrong way. So he's got this decision to make. He chooses what? Chooses the serpent. Chooses the beast. Takes his brother out into a field and kills him. And so God again comes looking, just like he looked for Adam and Eve. Now he's looking for Abel. And Cain says, I don't know where he is. Am I my brother's keeper? And God says to him, I know what you've done. You can hear the blood crying out. And the land, as the judgment on Cain comes, the land is cursed. Again, he says you're going to find difficulty in producing your crops. You're going to find hardship there, and he's driven out of the land. And yet, even in that, there is a redemption. When God says, because Cain's like, no, this is too much for me. I can't bear it. When anyone meets me, I'm going to get killed. I'm going to be rejected forever. And God says, no, I'm going to put a mark on you. Just like he clothed Adam and Eve and covered their nakedness. He says, I'm going to put a mark on you so that nobody will kill you. So there's a kind of a redemption. Even though he has to bear the consequences of his sin. And yet God still covers him and gives him some grace in the midst of his judgment. So can you see the way that the story's kind of, there's many similarities there. And we're learning that this cycle of sin is going to be repeated in humanity again and again in different ways, but with a similar kind of underlying reasons. Why was he angry? Anger usually shows there's an idol. When your idol is threatened, then you get angry. So whatever his idol was, maybe he was used to being the firstborn and the most popular and the most important, and suddenly God says, no, I don't receive your offering. Something made him very angry enough to kill his brother. So there's idolatry there, there's choosing to go your own way rather than God's way, embracing the beast or the serpent or whatever it is that's tempting you, and then having to face the judgment of God.
And him cloaking him in something to protect him.
Yeah, some kind of kindness that God shows in it all. So, it's part of the human condition that we've inherited. Humanity has now this inheritance of this rebellion, of wanting to choose their own way rather than God's way. And with it, that sin leads to death and destruction. And that's the message that we'll have over these next few chapters. Death, destruction, because people choose their own way rather than God's way. And yet within it, God isn't far away. God is still reaching out, searching, finding, and bringing people through.
Amazing he can do both.
Yeah. So, discussion question for this week, once we've looked at this, from Genesis chapter 3 and 4. Can you think of any other temptation stories that there are in the Bible and how they relate in a similar way? Okay, so people's temptation, their sin, and the underlying reasons why they did that. Can you see the similarities to Adam and Eve and to Cain and Abel? Let's discuss that. Okay, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye now.